Welcome back to Watchtower Down podcast. Today I'm going to tackle one of the most shocking political assassinations in recent history. And that, of course, is the killing of conservative Christian activist Charlie Kirk by a 22-year-old Tyler Robinson. The case has everything: radicalization, online echo chambers, personal awakenings, and a swirl of conspiracy theories that echo historical events like the JFK assassination. We're going to break it all down coherently, from Robinson's background to the evidence, the motives, and why some people see shadows of a MK Ultra style grooming. Stick around for the full video. This is a story that demands your attention. And of course, the following is my opinion and my conclusions based on various sources, my own investigative background, and of course, seen through the lens of a Christian worldview. Tyler Robinson was born and raised in Washington, Utah, a devout Latter-day Saints family. When we look at the LDS Church, in light of my overarching view that there are only two teams in the world, the LDS Church is definitely not playing on Team Jesus. Christianity has long held that LDS is a cult, i.e., they have a completely different view of Jesus. Well, why does that matter? Well, let's not forget that in the end days, the deception will be so great that it will suck in the elect, if that were possible, according to Jesus. And I think it's best for us to understand at the outset which team the various people most likely are playing on. So you can picture a classic conservative household. Most of his relatives were staunch Republicans, Trump supporters. Robinson himself aligned with that during high school at Pineview. He was even a Trump supporter ahead of the 2020 election. His classmates described him as quiet, intelligent, a bit shy, basically a typical gamer kid involved in school clubs, but he was never the life of the party. As far as I know, he had no criminal record, there was no real red flags, and I was even unable to determine if he ever had a girlfriend. He graduated in 2021, picked up some college credits at what's now Utah Tech University, and even started at Utah State. But by late 2024, he dropped out after one semester. Well, why? Reports suggest a mix of personal struggles along with isolation. He ended up working as an electrical apprentice at a technical college while living in St. George and registered as an independent voter. But as far as we know, he never actually casted a ballot. And of course, this is where we see a shift begin. The radicalization that turned this seemingly ordinary young man into an accused assassin. In the year leading up to September 10th, 2025, Robinson underwent a profound personal and political transformation. The catalyst? Well, in my view, it was most likely a romantic relationship with his roommate, Lance Twiggs, a biological male, transitioning, in his mind, into a female, otherwise a transgender. According to court documents, family interviews, and even statements from the Utah governor, this relationship prompted Robinson to become more supportive of gay and trans rights, political nonsensical movements, and to become more left-leaning politically overall. His mother told reporters that it created a growing rift at family dinner shortly before the incident. Robinson lashed out against Kirk's views on transgender issues, calling them hateful, which is interesting since Kirk's views were mild and mainstream for at least the previous 2,000 years in the West. The radical views are actually the new views that are seeking to turn the world that we know upside down. It's interesting that in the ridiculous times we're living in, advocating that men and women should be married and that they should raise families and that we should protect our children from sexual deviance is somehow considered a radical view. Robinson and Twigs didn't have a casual fling. Neighbors reported seeing them holding hands, kissing publicly in the weeks leading up to the shooting. And based on available reporting from outlets like the BBC, People, and ABC News, there's zero evidence of any prior girlfriends or heterosexual relationships in Robinson's life. No exes have come forward, even in our attention-seeking culture where you'd expect someone to pop up for a tabloid spot or some social media clout. High school acquaintances describe him as reserved and dateless during those years. So this relationship with Twigs appears to be his first significant romantic involvement, and apparently it hit him very hard, perhaps amplified by the biological bonding we often see with early sexual experience. Oxytocin, the love hormone, flooding the system during intimacy, creating deep emotional attachments that can be overwhelming. Some abstinence advocates point to this as the reason why it actually makes sense to wait. Those bonds can be intense, especially for first-timers, and they might explain why Robinson's views flipped so dramatically, clashing with his conservative upbringing. But of course, the relationship alone doesn't explain the violence. And so here's where we enter the online world. Post-dropout, Robinson's isolation deepened. He dove headfirst into what officials call the dark corners of the internet: Reddit, Discord, various gaming communities. Governor Cox described these spaces as festering leftist ideology laced with extremism. It's not so much that the organized groups, but it's more or less a toxic brew that rewards viral performative acts over any real politics. Researchers label him as being poisoned online, radicalized through memes, banter, and echo chambers that normalize violence as edgy content. As far as we know, he wasn't tied to Antifa or any formal left-wing outfit. It was kind of like aimless, more like a gamer turning rage into real-world action. On Discord, in a private chat with fellow gamers, Robinson engaged in meme-heavy discussions. After the shooting, he even joked, before, of course, privately confessing, "It was me, and I'm going to surrender." The FBI investigated over 20 users, at least they claim they did, in the group for potential foreknowledge, but no charges were levied. The digital trail manifested in his plannings. He did have a rifle. He did put a scope on it. He did engrave bullets with cryptic references from gaming, 4chan, Tumblr, and even the furry subculture, which is a whole other bunch of nonsense that if you're bored out of your mind and want to go down a rabbit hole of depravity and lunacy, just get into the furry subculture. Now, of course, we don't see these as deep ideological signals. Many people say that this nonsense probably isn't deep ideological symbols, but maybe it is. It's designed for online discourse, in-group laughs, and chaos, but not necessarily a manifesto. The attack itself unfolded on September 10th at Utah Valley University in Orem. Charlie Kirk, the Turning Point USA founder, known for his conservative apologetics, was mid-speech when Robinson allegedly fired from a rooftop. Kirk was hit and killed. It was captured on viral video, turning the event into instant public theater. One of the interesting things about the video itself, and a good linchpin that can help show you my theory about how there's only two teams, is that many members of the audience began to act joyfully when they saw that Charlie Kirk was shot. One person was even screaming that I did it. And this was seen by many as a view that this person was trying to help the shooter escape and that maybe it was some kind of conspiracy. The reality of it is that most of these people are either demon possessed or just mental patients. But what you really have to understand, again, is that there's only two teams. So things that seem like they're connected really aren't connected except from that point of view. Now, it appears Robinson planned this in just over a week, motivated by what he saw as Kirk's hatred. Text to Twigs explicitly linked it to Kirk's anti-trans comments during a talk on mass shootings. President Trump, in a briefing, called it radicalization over the internet for the left in a short time. Post-shooting, Robinson didn't flee very far. He confessed via text to Twigs, left a note under his keyboard saying that he had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it. He hid the rifle, but it was later discovered, and of course, he told his family. His dad and pastor friend arranged a peaceful surrender the next day. There was no shootout, no drama, just a kid turning himself in. Now, of course, let's address the big elephant in the room, which is all of the conspiratorial theories and nonsense that is floating around this case. The case has sparked wild speculation, with some viewing Robinson as a trans Manchurian candidate, a random MK Ultra-like grooming victim where unconnected events seized his mind and turned him into an assassin. And of course, MK Ultra, for those who are unfamiliar, was the CIA's real program, experimenting with LSD, hypnosis, and mind control to create unwitting killers. Are there parallels here? Well, perhaps there are, but it's also highly likely that Robinson was just radicalized online and that the particular circumstances worked his brain like he was an MK Ultra victim. The bottom line is he was playing on Team Satan and Charlie Kirk was probably playing on Team Jesus, and so him killing him doesn't really shock me all that much. Robinson did have a swift spiral. Conservative kid bonds with a trans partner, has clashes with his family, marinates in online toxicity, engraves meme bullets, and then strikes. Some X posts and Reddit threads claim that Utah State as a CIA recruiting ground, Twigs as a vector for flipping him, or even a group of 6 CIA agents pulling strings. Some people are even hinting that there are ties to Mossad. Well, what is interesting about all of these theories, whether they're true or not, is not the point. The point is that all of these people are not playing on Team Jesus. They're all playing on the team that is fighting against Christians in the modern world and has been for 2,000 years. It's almost not relevant if there is some kind of big conspiracy among those groups, because there's always a conspiracy among these groups. It's just the people in these groups don't know it. The head of their conspiracy is actually their coach, Satan, and they're playing on all of these teams, whether they know it or not, bringing about what he wants. Now, theories linking Kirk's distancing from Israel donors seems to be like a motive for this setup. Is there any actually proof for any of this? Well, not really, but again, it doesn't actually matter. The buzz has been polarized. We have one camp pushing patsy theories. These texts are faked or they sound like they're scripted, and look at this cop lingo. There was no recovered bullets. The autopsy has been sealed. The parents are hiding in witness protection. Influencers like Ian Carroll and Candace Owens fueled this early on, with Owens teasing that proof is coming that may never materialize. Of course, there's another angle. There's multiple shooters based on inconsistent bullet holes or unconfirmed clips of Robinson at a prior Kirk event. Then there's the left-leaning theories that, of course, blame MAGA grooming, but of course that's debunked because ultimately Robinson wasn't ultra MAGA. He was basically an unaffiliated dropout, another member of Team Satan, doing things that people on Team Satan do. However, there's a very important reality check here. And that is, as of December 13th, 2025, there's basically zero evidence that there were any other shooters involved or Robinson even as a patsy. The ironclad evidence that we have is DNA on a rifle, his screwdriver, a towel, surveillance footage of him actually on the rooftop, engraved casings matching his Discord style, text messages verified by prosecutors and the FBI. Granted, I understand nobody trusts the FBI, but you also have to understand that many of the people in the FBI are not playing on Team Jesus. There's no accomplices have been charged, despite the FBI's supposed look into a overarching conspiracy. And of course, unlike Lee Harvey Oswald, who denied everything and called himself a patsy shortly before he was murdered, Robinson basically admitted guilt in multiple ways. He left a note, he sent texts, apparently he confessed to his family and then turned himself in. Oswald never confessed. Robinson did, privately and willingly. Prosecutors are seeking the death penalty for aggravated murder. There's been no bombshells. There's no new evidence flipping the script. In essence, it really looks like a lone wolf story. An isolated 22-year-old playing on Team Satan gets his first intense relationship, awakening nonsensical pro-LGBT views, amplified by his online rage against Kirk's completely normal for 2,000 years views about home and family life and religion, leading to this horrendous self-fueled act. The grooming vibe sticks because the rapid change in meme theatrics, but Occam's razor points to basically organic radicalization. The kid just absorbed the evil that was around him, and because he was playing on Team Satan anyway, he had no protection against being radicalized. So it's highly unlikely that this is a deep state plot, unless, of course, you're going to say that the deep state is also on Team Satan, which I believe they are, and so all of these events are connected at that apex. What does this mean for us? What are we supposed to take out of this? Well, frankly, it means that worldview matters. Christianity views the world as consisting of two teams. There's Christians and everybody else. The everybody else team wears different color uniforms and employs different tactics, but they are still coordinated at the top from a coach that only some of them even know exists. People who aren't aware of the team structure look at the world and see massive conspiracies unfolding all around them. It's the Jews versus the Muslims, the deep state versus the patriots. All of these seemingly unconnected pieces moving around a chessboard, and they're all pushing us in one direction, which, of course, Bible believers consider this the direction toward the end times. The reason everything looks like a conspiracy, and probably actually isn't, is because everything is a conspiracy, but not in the way that you think it is. The conspiracy leaders are all in the spiritual realm. It's Satan and his minions moving his team around to create anti-Christian havoc all over the world. He's sowing hate and discontent with the final object to be dead Christians. I hope you don't lose sight of that. None of us can know the content of a person's heart, and so in some cases, it's not always clear to see which team a person is actually playing on. Probably Charlie was on Team Jesus, but I don't actually know. I know Robinson isn't on Team Jesus. That is fairly obvious. In fact, it's usually pretty obvious to spot someone who's definitely not on Team Jesus. But it's sometimes hard to find out how many wolves are actually running around in the sheep's clothing. Whether TPUSA is good or bad for the kingdom of God, the net result of Charlie Kirk's death has been the sowing of hate and discontent inside of many sincere people who actually are on Team Jesus. As near as I can tell, this kid was radicalized by Satan's minions on the left. He was on their team anyway, and so he was used as a tool to deceive Christians, into running down multiple rabbit holes and to waste their efforts on things that don't really matter anyway. I can tell you this, most of the people spreading the various conspiracy nonsensical stories are not on Team Jesus. You have to analyze a person's worldview before you take them too seriously. Are they playing on the right team? And again, this isn't too hard because there really are only two teams. And guess what? Roman Catholics, they're not on Team Jesus. Mormons, they're not on Team Jesus. Conservative atheists, they're not on Team Jesus. Conservative Jews, they're not on Team Jesus. Pretty much even a large portion of the evangelical leadership in the United States, and it pains me to say this, they're not on Team Jesus either. In these times, the first question you ask before considering how to interpret what somebody says should be, what team is this person playing on? Ultimately, the whole thing is just going to be another small victory for Satan. However, I have no doubt that it's going to backfire on him like one of those Acme gadgets used by Coyote against the Roadrunner. Ultimately, Team Jesus is going to win. Those of us on Team Jesus need to make sure that we are spreading the truth as best we know, working on the kingdom and in the kingdom, and not being distracted by all of the nonsense being thrown out by the other team. The message needs to remain. God loves a repentant heart. Jesus took a punishment he didn't deserve, so you can get forgiveness that you didn't earn. The kingdom of God may have a narrow gate, but for right now, that gate is still open, and anyone can ask Jesus for permission to come in. Jesus is coming back, and there's no doubt in my mind that that event is fast approaching. Every world event, when viewed through that light, actually makes sense. It's not all just a confusing jumble of nonsense when you have the right worldview. So don't be distracted by the nonsense. And again, remember, there's only two teams, and so you need to get on Team Jesus.